Kyungmi's installation is called Rich. This was originally an installation that I co-organized with 18th Street Art Center in Santa Monica for an exhibition called on demographics. And I had actually worked with Kyungmi about 5 years ago for an exhibition organized at Laguna Art Museum called Whiteness or Wayward Construction. So I was happy to be able to work with her again. This installation has grown out of sort of a personal journey for her. In this installation, she is exploring sort of some different places that she lives. She lives in Los Angeles and also has this sort of studio home in Ghana with her partner. And part of, then for her, some of the things she's explored is her being Korean, her partner being African American. They live in a predominantly African American neighborhood in Los Angeles. They have a space in Ghana that they're working with, the sort of complicated relationship between Ghana and the US with the slave trade. So these are some of the different things that she's exploring in the work. And the videos are a video from a church service in her Inglewood neighborhood, and then videos from rituals, funerary rituals in Ghana, and juxtaposing those two things. And then the sort of constructed wood web that you see in front of the images, for her, evoked the idea of the mangrove forest that you would see in Ghana in terms of kind of the twisting limbs, but also for her it evokes the sort of fabric and pattern design. I was saying just a little bit of background, and I had sort of was talking about a little bit about the sculpture, but I didn't say very much. So go ahead and start over and talk about kind of your process and everything.
How long do I have?
Just 10 minutes.
The piece was inspired by the 18th Street project, where there was a year of programming. It was called Future of Nations, and Tyler was curating a group show, and he had invited me to create a solo project in the project room that was talking about the idea of demographics. And what I decided to do was to think about, because we were visiting, my partner and I had gone to Ghana to visit, and then we decided to buy a small piece of land and build a small studio hut that we could go visit and make artwork in. And it over the course of 2 or 3 years, it's really transformed my art practice, because experiencing a place like Africa is very transformative in the sense that you experience a lot of different things that you're not used to, and you're sort of confronted with your own fears and a lot of different things. So it's been really affecting me. So when Tyler invited me, one of the ideas that I had was sort of the relationships that I was observing about the Africans who are in Africa, and then the African Americans where in Los Angeles. And my partner's an African American, and we live in an African American neighborhood, an artist studio space. And so I've been thinking a lot about the relationship between being an African and being an African American, and the relationship between those cultures. And it's a very complex thing, and of course it can't be really talked about in a simple art installation. But that was sort of what I wanted to explore, and I was sort of looking at different angles of approaching it. And one of the things that I decided to do, and that I was really moved by, was where I live, there are, I was telling Tyler the other day, in a stretch of about 10 blocks, we have about 10 churches. And it's a combination of, storefront churches and big churches. There's a whole, and sometimes even people knock on our door because our building is a commercial building, so they think it's a church. And so every Sunday morning I hear all this different music. So I was thinking a lot about this sort of spiritual practices. And then in Africa, I see a lot of Christian presence, but also a lot of funerals. So I was thinking about the rituals in Africa and the music that I encounter. So that's how it sort of, the piece have developed. So I wanted to sort of juxtapose these two different spiritual practices. And if you have time to explore the whole video, if they're not that long, well, the videos, some of the African funeral, there's mostly traditional music, but at the end there's Christian music. They a little bit talk about Hallelujah, and there's a bit of that Christian thing. So it is a Christian ritual, but very much of a traditional thing. But at the end they do sing a little bit of hymn, and it is actually supposed to be a Christian ritual. So basically, I guess that's the general premise of the piece.
Of the wood structure.
The sculptural piece has sort of evolved over 2 shows. The first show had just the flat element, the painted element, and the photographs. And in this piece, I wanted to develop these shapes that was painted into a sculptural form. And the colors and the shapes were really inspired by the colors that was in the clothing that people were wearing. So I sort of wanted to think about the idea of these color that you encounter when you're visiting this funeral. And in general, Africans tend to dress very colorfully, but at funerals they're in their best, clothing. So the color and the pattern is really overwhelming and beautiful. So formally, that's sort of what I was drawing from. And another idea was this connection of growth and families and connection, and sort of thinking about connecting the 2 different cultures or 2 different worlds that are connected by blood. I was thinking about sort of the idea of growth and nature, and I was sort of seeing this structure as it's a very artificial or man-made looking structure, but the way I was thinking of it is a growth that's sort of happening, like a natural growth or root. And where we are in Africa, there's a mangrove forest that's really intense to experience. So I was thinking of like a man-made mangrove structure. Thank you.
Thank you.